All eyes continue to be on the battle in Georgia as two runoffs in the state will determine control of the Senate. Joe Biden even planning to stump for the two Democrat candidates next week. Georgia Congressman Doug Collins joins me now to discuss it all. All right, Congressman, I watched the debate. I don't want to get into too much of it, but what I'll tell you is this. The only thing that sticks out to me is this. Georgia's a conservative state. All right, we got this guy Warnock who's a preacher, but doesn't believe in the military or the police and believes in abortion and thinks that the Bible supports abortion. Who's crazy, me or him?
It's not you, Judge, that's for sure. It's good to see you again. No, Raphael Warnock's down here is trying to pull the ultimate bait and switch in Georgia. He's trying to appear as this, nice guy who has puppy ads and everything's okay, but yet came out with a tweet just the other day, and I've been calling him on this one for a while, says, I'm a pro-choice pastor. And in that debate, he actually said, the room is too small for a woman and her doctor in the government. Well, my question for a pastor is, Where's God in that? He should have been there to start with, and my scripture tells me that something different. I'm not sure where he's at. But he's also against the police. He's also against the military. He said you couldn't serve God and the military. And Judge, I'm a military chaplain for 19 years in the Air Force. I've served in Iraq. I'll tell you right now, you better know how to serve God and be a better military person to start with. This is a man who doesn't want people to know what he really feels, and it really came out when he was asked about packing the court. He was asked about packing the court, and he said, I really haven't thought about that. And when he says that, it's just so disingenuous. He's thought about it, but his counselors have told him, you can't say how liberal you are because you'll turn off voters. It's time Georgia turns him back.
Yeah, well, then I would have said you haven't thought about it, then make sure you don't vote one way or the other because you haven't thought about it. You didn't give it any advance notice. Let's talk about President Trump and Governor Kemp. President Trump just tweeted that how does Governor Brian Kemp allow certification of votes without verifying signatures, and despite the recently released tape of ballots being stuffed, his poll numbers have dropped like a rock. He is finished as governor. All right. I guess he tweeted that to you, too. So what's that about? I mean, in the end, you've got Kemp. Everybody's coming after him. But they should. Why won't he call another session of the legislature?
Well, I think that this is what you're seeing, is very much frustration from the president. He and I have talked about this a lot. The governor is trying to use a political answer, saying he didn't want to call the session together because it would be overturned by a court. The problem is there's things he could do. I think he has called for signature verification, but the Secretary of State down here has said that he doesn't want to do that because that would shine a light on this bad consent decree that we have down here, in which basically Raffensperger, the Attorney General, and the governor got rolled by Stacey Abrams and the Democrats to softening and weakening the signature requirement down here. Look, this is something that we now have a lot of eyes. The president himself last Saturday down here in Georgia said, look, we're going to be focused on this. Raffensperger knows that we're focused on it. The elections people are. But one of the things we got to have down here, Judge, is people have to turn out to vote. If they don't turn out to vote, nothing else that we're trying to put in place matters.
Before we get to that, I want to stop for a second. What did you say that Stacey Abrams rolled over people? How did she roll over this guy Raffensperger to get him to violate the Constitution and the legislature? How did, would she come in with something? How did he roll over? Why?
Well, what happened down here is you have to go back. This goes back all the way to the previous governor's election that she never thought that she lost. And she brought a lot of suits down here claiming voter suppression and problems in the Secretary of State's office under Kemp and then Raffensperger. Yeah, well, they wanted to solve the lawsuits, Jeanine. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to get rid of the lawsuits, and so they decided to come up with this consent decree that most of us didn't know. I know David Schaefer, the GOP chairman down here, most of us didn't know what was going in this. In fact, I know from some people who told them that it was probably not a good idea, definitely not to sign it. But when they did, they gave away verification, weakened it to any signature on file. In other words, I can make the application and the ballot match. That's all I need to do. We know certain counties didn't follow that. It also talked about not removing people from voter rolls. It also got into actually sending out ballots.
Here's the bottom line. That's stupid. All right. If he doesn't have the spine to stand up against something that's a clear violation of statutory law and the Constitution, he should get out of office. Now, here's the second issue. If the first vote is corrupt in that it doesn't go along with the constitutional requirement, what makes you think the next vote for this runoff is going to be legit?
Well, the biggest issue we have now is you can, as we went through it the first time, and with looking at the verification, looking at the voters. Look, if we had not asked and found out these issues, we wouldn't even know where to look come January 5th. But as the president said and others have said, we now have more eyes than we've had on before. We have the Secretary of State knows that they're under scrutiny right now. We know these local election offices know that they're under scrutiny right now to do it the proper way that it has to be done, because so many things have been found out that are not right. But the big key here is if we don't actually follow through, and the president said this the other night, he said, look, we're going to follow this through. We're going to have these eyes. We're going to make sure they do it right. But you've got to turn out to vote. You don't have the voter, it doesn't matter.
Got it. Congressman Doug Collins, thanks so much for being with us.